And it's crazy too how it's it's fascinating because there actually are, I think, a lot of balance trainers that are doing some huge things. Like I always find this funny. Not only do I agree with you, like, Petco and a lot of big companies with lots of money, it's easier for them to market, their type of training, quote unquote. But also it's pure positive training. It's easier to market, I think, by nature. It's just
Yeah.
prettier. It's easier to like digest as a message.
Hmm.
Why then is like e-collar and stuff like that so popular these days?
Yeah.
It's kind of this like secret dark horse, and I feel like
I would
the
agree. Yeah.
the way that I kind of sum it up is and even now in like kids and human beings and stuff like that, it's like don't tell them no, don't. So it's just super popular, period. And yet I think while that message is just so prominent and so easy to make prominent, the way that the bigger like balanced dog trainers that I've noticed come out and do the crazy things they've done is just straight up data. It's like, listen, I hear you and it sounds amazing and everything. Here, let me show you this dog and then this dog and then this dog and then it just, this other person said was untrainable. This one was going to get put down. This one bit their owner 5 times. This one, whatever.
Mhm.
And so it's awesome how like they took it upon themselves to just make videos, and not all of them were like edited well or anything like that. Like Sean O'Shea with the Good Dog, who I fucking love. I love their content, and Sean himself and everything else. But their early videos, there's like no editing.
Yeah.
Like the audio and everything sucks, but the information was there. And so I'd sit there and watch it, and they were to the point to where them, Jeff, and a couple other trainers from here, they were doing seminars for certain like people in parliament in Europe, because some countries over there ban e-collars, and they were considering like removing the ban. Like they're doing big things. It's just it's weird that it's not bigger than it is.
Yeah, well, I'd say like a great representation, and like that's a fine goal if that's what if that's what someone knows, and like the only way I feel like I can make change is to go to Europe and be in Parliament and to do this. Like that's amazing. Like those things need to happen too. But like let's look at what's happening in the U.S. right now. It's a testament of just how powerful social media. The president of the United States right now, Twitter was banned, right?
Mhm.
It it was banned because of the power that vehicle has for the implications that has, right? So it's you can go do all these things, but at the same time, like for us, right, and like we just recognize that in this day and age we have an opportunity to over index on really going hard in the paint by growing this audience, by sharing our story and letting people be a part of the journey. That way we don't have to prove anything years from now. It's like just go, it's all there,
Right,
just scroll down,
right, right.
and so like I think that's a huge part of it. And I think that for the balance community in particular, it really like there has to be a you know there has like faster alone, further together, right? And I think that what people need to understand is that there's no sense in having the biggest building in town. I think Gary says this, right? It's like if you have the biggest building in town because you've just torn everyone else's down, that doesn't really say much about your building. But it's
Right.
way like when I think about what we are trying to do with like Dog Pro and Canine Performance, like I'm trying to build like the Avengers. I just want to have the Avengers tower where like everyone in the city's like that thing's keeping us safe. That's the one. Like I would love to be a part of that. That's like something worth building, right? Like that's something to marvel at. And I think that that's
To
ultimately like
marvel at.
right.
Marvel.
Pun actually literally not intended, but nice catch, Mariano. Um, but yeah, I think that ultimately, like that's what new trainers should be aspiring to do. Like there always is like history repeats itself, right? And there always has to be new people to come in. And that's why, there's been people in the industry, like while there's been huge people that haven't been super supportive, there's also been people like Jerry Bradshaw, who's like literally been like, my doors are open. Anything you want, anything you need, anything you want to collaborate on, come by
Mhm.
anytime. Come get
Mhm.
bit. Come do this. Like
Come get
literally
bit.
anything you
Come
want.
get bit.
Yeah, like anything, right? And so we've over the past year like fostered an amazing relationship with him and learned so much, and we've learned a lot from each
Yeah.
other, right? And
Mhm.
now we're all better for it. So
Well,
it's
and that's
like,
that's how it ultimately should be, right? Like I think
yeah,
what you were saying is like history repeats itself. Why does it? Because we're taught blueprints, we're taught schematics of how life should be. And it's as much as people might want to stick to their disciplines, like my opinion is I feel at some points, what is the answer? It's a mixed martial arts, right? It's like it is its own collaboration and meshing together of and the sharing of ideas, right? And that creates some type of intellectual revolution. And if you looked at it like a dog training culture, right? Like think of it, United States. It's like we got to accept everyone's culture. You know what I mean? And be able to live cohesively that way. And you don't have to think like me, but at least I need to respect you and you need to respect me, right? And at least we need to respect each other enough to have conversations back and forth. And it's within dog training, we kind of see like the reason there are still these gatekeepers or whatever it is. Sometimes it's ego and sometimes it's protection, right? It's protection of what is it, the thing that we are training. We're training dogs, and we're so protective of these things of these animals that we love dearly to our hearts, that everyone has its own origin story. I would love that to be its own episode. It's like, what is it? Like, what is the inciting event in your life as a dog trainer that triggered? How old were you? Were you 4? Were you 5? Were you 10? What is the triggering moment that made you go, I need to do this, right? And it's funny enough, I became a dog trainer when I was 18. The triggering moment was when I was 9, right? This thing that all of a sudden created this domino effect of stuff. But anyways, we're all protective of dogs is also kind of the issue, right? And in working with trying to get pure positive dog trainers onto the podcast and to talk like let's be realistic, the word balanced is very skewed to one side, and it needs to be more in the middle. There needs to be more understanding of classical condition. There needs to be more understanding of how to use food and how to use motivators and how to use these things, because I come from a Keeler method where it was all over here and we saw some results, but dogs weren't happy, wasn't sustained.
It's like health and nutrition, right? Like it constantly iterates. It's constantly different. There's new food that comes out. There's new technology that processes the food. Like there's so many nuances to it. That's for someone to think, for anyone to think that anything is going to stay the same forever. That's just so ignorant. Like it's so ignorant, right? And like not only that, but when it comes to the positive balanced argument, it really only takes a few, like, I actually was just pointing this out to Natalie. I saw, and this maybe it'll be like a small shout out, but like I saw an ad the other day for, it was like Cesar Millan's representing this new collar, right? It's called the Halo collar. And you look into it and it's actually a pretty interesting device. And while, I'm looking at the comments, is Balance Collars bashing on it because it's not an e-collar by e-collar technologies or Garmin. It's not like the standard static collar, and it's not pure positive because it has static and beeping and, it's all these different,
or whatever.
Yeah, it's on their neck, right? So it's like, but really what it is, like if you do your research and enough, is that they've really, it's actually the people that developed it are like these wild, very bright people from Stanford that specialize in IoT, and that they're basically trying to create better data and information by doing what they probably thought was best as people that maybe haven't been in the industry that long. So rather than all these people bashing on it, it's like, why wouldn't you just reach out and try to help them make a better product? Like why, like, when people hate on prong collars, it's like, great. Like, well, why can't I be the one to reach out to Hermspring and say, hey, how do we like iterate on this design? Like it's 2020. Do we have different materials? Do we have different design? Same thing with e-collar. It's like, why, and that's what people need to understand, is that in order to do those things, like you need resources, you need assets, you need to be able to deploy cash against these experimental ideas. So same thing, like we're good friends with the folks down at Xdog, right? And they get controversy all the time over their vest. And it's like, people don't understand that the vest they see today is not the vest that's going to be here in 5 years. Like when someone's passionate, it's best to be on their team, because when someone cares about something more than you do, like, and it's aligned with what you're doing, like it's good to be on their team, because you'll always lose to someone that cares more than you do. And that's why, we try to stay very much so in our lane of what we feel like we love to do, which is create content and educate people. And then we're building things around that. Right. So I think that's part of like, when it comes to this whole, dog training war, which really only exists within the industry. Most consumers have no idea it even exists, right?
I would disagree with that, because I think what's the number one question we get asked when we get phone calls is, what do you do? You know what I mean? And it's I think they're aware of it, but go ahead. Sorry. No,
I was gonna say that, for the most part, right? And I guess like it's all a matter of perspective. And I think that what a lot of dog trainers that do grow audience on social media come to realize is that the world's a vastly larger place than they realize. Because you
Right.
know, coming from our background, it wasn't unusual to have an email list of like 100,000 plus people that you're talking to, building support teams around, like all these crazy things, right?
Mhm.
But if you start out as a, you know, like there's different types of paths, and for a lot of dog trainers, they go to a school, they kind of get their reps in, and then they're confronted like, do I work for someone or do I start my own thing? And
Mhm.
most of the people that start their own thing are doing it because they just don't like working for someone. They want like the time freedom, location freedom to be at their house. They might act like, I don't really know Tom Davis's story, but like I don't know if he ever really set out to like become what he has. Maybe I know he didn't come from a background like we did. He came from like working with wolves and like really cool stuff, right? And he just loved dogs and happened to build this thing around it. Our path's very different, but there's still like a place where we can meet in the middle because of the way that both of our journeys have kind of grown, right? And maybe there's an intersection point where we can do something awesome together. But for most dog trainers that are starting out, it's just like understanding that there's such a big world out there. And when you learn to actually leverage the technology that's out there, you know, you actually learn to, you know, that things aren't as hard and as scarce as it might seem. You know, you're not worried about if you're the best dog trainer in town, because you realize there's a whole world of people out there, and that for
Yeah.
you to make the income you need to do what you love doesn't really take as much as you might think, you know?
Yeah, it's not about survival, it's about innovation, you know. Like
Yeah,
there is no scarcity here, you know, like
yeah, I think a lot of people just, I guess my underlying point there is that, you know, a lot of people haven't been exposed to that because they haven't really gotten a taste of what's possible online. That was something that was really cool to do with Jerry, is like we did this virtual webinar. I don't think he'd ever really done one like that before, but like in that virtual webinar, we had all these people that had an amazing experience and they didn't have to move from their living room. He didn't have to travel anywhere. And it was like, I could see him. All he had to do is in this exact seat I'm in, he sat down, he's like, oh, I just have to talk now. Like, that's it. And like, we're making money. We're
This is
doing this.
cool.
Like, this is like,
Yeah.
let's do more of this. And I'm like, exactly. Like, why would we go travel? Right.
Yeah.
And we can't, maybe you can't travel. Right. So I think I think for a lot of dog trainers, especially new dog trainers that are out there, I implore them to make sure that like, the focus is on creating a really great user experience, like user experience, client experience. It's all about the experience, right? You don't ever pander to other dog trainers and what they think you should be doing.
Yeah.
Make sure that you provide the ultimate experience for your client. Like when people come through our process, like they go through Calendly, they book it, it sends them the invite, the Zoom links create, like, it's just like, they never have to question, because from the get, like everything's seamless. And we put a lot of time on the front end to build that out. But like now that reputation precedes itself. And not only that, it removed our time out of like all of the little hiccups that we could have made by human error, you know? So there's like very small things that many dog trainers don't do, like hire a freaking web designer, like stop with the bad Wix pages, you know, like stop with like update your website. If you've had your dog training business for 25 years and you feel like you don't need to update your website,
and you're still on PHP,
like update your website. Like, you know, if you've been around for 25 years, you should have like the extra $5,000 laying around to pay like a decent web designer, you know, it's just like little things that, you know, especially for new dog trainers, it's like make those investments on the front end, and they will, like, if you're going to start your own business, and let that, you know, set that precedent for yourself. Because if you cut corners if you cut corners when you're starting your business, they bite you eventually, you know? So that's, even for a lot of people that are starting out, you know, I think it's really important for people to really have like some self-auditing and be like, would I rather get paid to learn on someone else's dime right when I start, like right when I'm embarking on this journey, or do I want to die on my own hill? You know, some people have that genetic thing where it's like, I got to die on my own hill. But some people really, it's strategic to get paid to learn. And like, that's exactly what Natalie did, right? Like, she's like, why would I just go like do all this free? Like, I'm just going to go get my reps in, see exactly how this big business trains hundreds of dogs. And she found things she loved, found things she didn't like. We took what we loved and tossed what we didn't like. And, you know, rinse and repeat.
Keep learning. Yep.
Yeah.
Keep on.
But only happens through collaboration and through being open-minded, you know?
Yeah. I think that's going to be the key. I think that's ultimately what our generation of dog trainer is going to try and do. Like it is, you know, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. We're going to work really, really hard, but just to get people to teach each other stuff, and willingly, right? And at the end of the day, what are we doing it for? We're doing it for the dogs, you know?
Yeah. And I noticed too, there are secret, like little hidden benefits of making content. One of which being, sometimes when you're talking to the client, and I think that it was interesting when we were talking about like dog training, there's really not one specific way to do something, you know, and that's kind of the cool part about it is you're right. It's almost like a mixed martial art type deal where it's like, yo, you could have done it this way with a leash, could have done it this way with food, could have done it this way, you know, it could have done it this way with a mixture of all three. But then you take just the crazy amount of factors with a dog, and then you add in the client and their household, and and it becomes this big like mosaic of different things and how you can play the game there. But also, even just interactions there aside, then there's all the other stuff, like you said, websites and online presence and how you deal with people through text message and email, and so I think the secret little hidden benefit there is I've spoken to a lot of people. Um, some some clients are really nervous about like a certain tool, so I'll get a phone call here and there that like, my dog, I've tried this Prozac and everything else and treats and all that stuff, and he still has like, he still bites my son, you know um and I'm sure we've all been in the position to where you sit and talk to someone, you have like an evaluation, and they're like, and in their head they're like, and they're nervous and they just don't end up training with you, and it happens, and um but when you do content like this, you're not really there. So like their back isn't up because you're not there. They can pause you, they can send you away, they can minimize you, they can. So I've had so many clients. I actually don't think, of all the clients in this scenario, I don't think I've gotten one that wasn't this way. That they were like, I've read the website, I watched the podcast, everything else, and like they had a chance to entertain the idea of what we're saying without the pressure of us being like, so do you understand? And
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of a little secret hidden benefit of making content. And then number two, like you were talking about, how do you automate? How do you save time? Well, if we do this once, it's done. And we
Right.
can always do more and make it bigger and better and so on. But
Mhm.
it saves me a ton of time when somebody calls me and they're like, oh, my dog, it's COVID, I'm home now, crate training, social anxiety, separation anxiety, and I have a 20-minute conversation explaining to them like whatever. Okay,
Mhm.
eval this day, sweet. Okay, have a good one. Bye-bye. Next one calls me, oh, COVID, great, blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice where I can be like, hey, listen, we actually just did an episode on this. Do me a favor, check it out, blah, blah, blah. See you later. See you later. See you later.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
compound your time in that way.
Yeah. I mean, for us, a lot, like I would say that one of the things, and this is not a dig anyway, it's just the verbiage, like this isn't directed towards anyone, but a lot of dog trainers out there try to target desperate dog owners.
Mm.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't want anyone who's desperate paying me money, because desperation is a big emotion, and
Yeah.
it comes with big expectations. So
Mhm.
our goal through content has always been to attract educated customers or educated clients that actively want to make that investment in their dog because they've been nurtured through the content. There's no we don't have to sell anyone on the idea. They've already bought in. They're
Huge.
just reaching out to schedule the call and make the decision
Right.
and get on the
Yep.
calendar, and
Yep. Yep.
that's
Yep.
like the benefit of the content is like, even on YouTube, right? We haven't had the best posting frequency, but like some of the videos that bring us the most clients still are ones we made a year and a half
Right.
ago, 8 months ago, because
Right.
like it's like YouTube's just a big search engine, right? And so it's just
Right.
understanding that like all of these different platforms are really like kind of the top of the funnel, right? It's an opportunity to nurture your cold traffic without having to pay for it. And if
Mhm.
people out there don't
Mhm.
understand those terminologies, like cold traffic is people that just have no idea who you are. So when people have no idea who you are, you want to like, it's like a TV show, right? Like, I don't know. When I grew up, I loved the show Lost. Every freaking week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. on ABC. I was watching that show, had my snack ready. I was ready for that show. I knew exactly what was going to happen. It's going to be an hour long. There's going to be a few commercial breaks. And
Mhm.
that's what like people need to understand if they're going to embark on this like social media journey, is that you don't need to be robotic, but you do need to have programming that people can come to expect something reliable from you, right? And I see a lot of people go wrong with just like this hodgepodge of things, but like, study other people that are having success. Like if you look at our page, you'll notice that it's very like, and other people have definitely observed this and emulated, and that's amazing. It's awesome to see other people seeing success from the same strategy. But you know like, you go to our thing, there's a picture of Natalie and a dog, or me and a dog, or something that catches your eye and looks aesthetic on their feed. You swipe right, there's a graphic. It's very simple.
I
It's
noticed
like
that.
a thumbnail, like it's
Yeah.
very plain. And then there's a really valuable value in the caption, right?
Mhm.
So the idea, right, is that we are optimizing that for the things that the robot, which is Instagram, values, which is saves, shares, engagement. We now have created something where the picture drew them in. That got a click. The people are more inclined to share a graphic than they are a picture of Natalie onto their feed, like, you know, obviously, because it's more informative and valuable for their audience. And then when they click into the picture, boom, now there's this whole article of information that's valuable. So, you know, that's why, like, then on Instagram, you know, we make sure that we have the right links in our bio and that we have the right tools that help to usher people to these other channels that we're on, right? So that we can kind of like circumvent that traffic around these different areas, hoping that as they get into the wormhole that is Canine Performance, they're like, in their head, they're like, I got to take my dog to these people. Like, there's no one else I trust more than these people I've just accidentally watched a few hours of online. Same with, I'm sure Tom would say it's a lot of the same stuff, right? Because I'm sure that's what he's experienced, is that people walk in that upstate canine and they want like a whole tour because they're trying to see if it's just like in real life as how they imagine in their eye from all the videos, right? So that's like, you know, the content thing really is like, in our day and age, that is the equivalent of like, you have to do this thing like a show, you know, it has to be programmed. It has to, like, we put out content almost every day. That's why the successful channels like Tom's on YouTube, every week, you know, when the things are coming out, you know, when, how, what his videos are going to be like. Same thing with your podcast. You have like a format to it that people know and love, and they can fall in love with it, right? Other than just like every time, if I turned off Lost every week and like there was totally new cast, plot line's totally different, I'm never going to fall in love with that show. Like, I might watch it if it's on, but like, I'm not waiting for it, you know, the way we're waiting for like Breaking Bad, you know, it's different. So you just have to decide, like, if you're going to be about the life, like, you got to go all in with intention and know, like, this is what I'm going to do, you know, with this platform that I want to build for myself.